Who are you named for?
I was named for an uncle of mine.
When and where were
Named for a
you born?
preacher's son, aren't you? Cleo Bailey?
Cleo Bailey, yeah.
Cleo.
When and where were you born?
Portia, Arkansas, January 21st, 1912.
How far back can you trace your family?
Trace my family? Well, back to those days when I was born, not beyond that.
What is your mother's full name?
I don't know her full name. Her name is Mary, and they call her Molly.
What is your father's full name?
Robert Lee. I know his name, Robert Lee Bailey.
Can you remember hearing stories about your mother or father when they were young?
Well, when we were living on the farm, yes.
Can you tell one or two of these stories?
Yeah. Mama was, Papa was out there pumping the water in the front yard, and the cotton wagons were going, the people were going home Saturday afternoon about 5 or 6 o'clock. And Mama wanted to tease Papa a little bit, so she said, I know why you're pumping the water out there so close to the road. He said, what is it? She said, you're looking at all those old women that as they pass by. I know one on my daddy too. I said to him one day, we were out in the field and he was plowing, making rows. I said, Papa, why don't you make straight rows like Billy Parr and Abe Hester, our farm was between theirs. He says, because more cotton grows on a crooked road.
Do you know the names of your mother or father's sisters and brothers?
Sisters and brothers. No, I don't think I do. Their last name was Nichols on one side. I think it was it Mama's side?
Of course.
Yeah.
Dick, you knew Uncle Dick.
Yeah.
Do you know the names of your grandparents, great-grandparents? And
No,
those?
I don't know those. We had a team of mules, I remember. Beck and Kate, they took us to church and to town and back and pulled the cotton to the gin on Saturdays and things like that. My two sisters, when they got about a half a mile from town, they got off the cotton wagon. They didn't like for people to see them on the cotton wagon. So they got off the cotton wagon about a half a mile from town and walked on into town.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Oh, yes, yeah. Have about 10 in all, but there are 4 of us still living. Mary and Raymond Nopal. 4 of us still living. Mary lives in Sun City West, Arizona. Raymond lives in Searcy, Arkansas. And Opal lives in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Where did you live when you were growing up?
What? Where? When?
When you were growing up.
When I was growing up, it was Tuckerman, Arkansas. Tuckerman, Arkansas.
What are some of the earliest memories you have growing up with your siblings?
With my siblings? Well, Raymond would whip me because he was stronger than I was and 2 years younger than I was. And my mother got tired of that, so one day we were in the front room about to have a fight, and she said, Charlie, if you let him whip you this time, I'm going to give you another one when he gets through. So I won that one.
teenager?
As a teenager? Well, I thought girls were pretty and enjoyed smiling at them and pinching them under the seat, you know. Oh, I'll tell you one on Jesse Williford. He and I sat in the same seat at school when we were in the second grade. I remember that. And one day he said, "Charlie, can I vaccinate you?" I said, "Well, yeah, I guess so, if you want to." I said, "Have you got a pen?" And he said, "Yeah." He had a straight pen about that long, you know. And I pulled my sleeve up, and he started scratching me like that, and the blood was running down my arm. And the principal came over there, and he said, "What are you boys doing?" I said, "Well, he's vaccinating me." He said, "Well, I think I will vaccinate both of you."
What was your first job and how much did you earn?
My first job. Well, I first went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and stayed a couple of years with my sister because she told me I wanted to go to a business school and learn, you know, how to type and take shorthand and dictation and things like that. But I didn't have any money, so Cora knew that, and she called me one day and said, "If you'll come over to Hot Springs, they have all these classes in high school and no charge, you know." So I went and stayed 2 years with her, and I was pretty good with the typewriter. Well, I had learned to type in the post office. I worked in the post office when I was in high school, and this lady, Olga Roberts, was the post mistress. And she had an old Underwood typewriter back in the office. It looked like, to me, about 50 years old, but I guess it wasn't. But, and the manual was there beside it, so I started working it out and got to where I could type, you know, by myself. And then when I went to Hot Springs, I got pretty good with the typewriter. I can type 60 or 70 words a minute. On the first job, though, I thought I was pretty smart. A girl came in one day, and we were typing up deeds and mortgages, and she could type two while I was typing one. You know, she was real fast.
Where did you attend school?
Well, the first, they had a little school out there close to where we lived. It was called Baptist Chapel. Baptist Chapel. Just one teacher in 8 grades. And there were about 50 kids in the bunch, you know. And I did that for quite a while, I guess, till I was through the 6th, 7th grade. And I went to Tuckerman High School when I got into high school. And I'll tell you a joke on a couple of kids that were dating. Frank Greenhall and Oral Warmoth were dating, and they were sitting up on the concrete ledge at recess, and I was down below listening to what they had to say. And he had to blow his nose real hard, and his girlfriend said, "If that hadn't been so much, I would have thought it was your brains." Frank Greenhall.
What is the name of your wife?
Bessie Mae Mucho.
How did you meet?
Where did we meet? We met at Freed Hardeman College over in Henderson, Tennessee. I think it was about 1939. And I started preaching the first Sunday in November that year. And when they sang the invitation, a young girl came up and wanted to be baptized. And I said, "Well, we'll go down to Decatur," and I was in Alabama. that Sunday when I preached. We go down to Decatur and have the baptism down there. And she said, "Oh no, I don't want to be baptized in a baptistry. I want to go out and be baptized in the creek." And the next morning, we were going to do that the next morning about 8 or 9 o'clock because I had to go back to college. And on the back porch where I spent the night with these people, there was a thin layer of ice on the water. And I had to baptize her out in the water when there wasn't any ice on the creek, but it was real cold. I couldn't even talk. Couldn't even talk. It was so cold.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 30 years old. 30 years old.
What was the date of your wedding?
I don't remember that, do you?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, July the 12th, yeah.
1940.
I'll tell you a little joke on Leroy Garrett, you know. He went to school where we did, you know, and he would go out and preach on Sundays. And so one time when he went out and preached, I got a date with Bessie May. And he came back in and he found out about it, you know. And he and I lived in the same room downstairs. And he said, "Charlie, I thought you and I were friends." And I said, "We are friends." And he says, "No, we're not friends. Because you are a snake in the weeds."
Because he had been dating, I'd been dating him.
Yeah, because Bessie May, I was dating his girlfriend. And he pointed at me like that.
You know who he is, don't you?
Yeah.
"You are a snake in the weeds."
Where were you married?
We were married out in Los Angeles, and our uncle married us. Bessie May's
Mac.
Uncle Mac. Yeah, Uncle Mac Tackett. Uncle Mac Tackett.
Please describe your wedding day.
Our wedding day. I don't remember it that well.
It was on a Sunday, and he had to preach.
Yeah, I had to preach that Sunday. I remember that.
I guess he is.
Tell me all about the wedding as you remember it.
Here it is.
Well, there wasn't a big crowd there. And the ceremony wasn't real long, but it was by her Uncle Mac.
Yes.
And I remember that, and we got on the train. We got on the train and took a trip pretty soon after that. I don't know where we went on the train.
Where was your first
He's not recording it now.
Oh, yeah,
Is he still recording? Okay.
Where was your first home after you were married?
After we married,
What's mom
I guess it was in Denver, Texas.
doing?
No. My first home. When we first got married, we lived in an apartment
Yeah,
in Los Angeles.
yeah.
And then we moved into the dormitory at the college, lived there 2 years.
At Pepperdine, It's in Los Angeles. It was then, it's not now.
What was life like the first years of marriage?
Well, it was pretty nice. I think we got along pretty well. We still get along pretty well. Have a fuss now and then, but get along pretty well.
Did you have any children?
I'll tell you one on her mother, you know. I went down to see them before we got married. And she was talking to her husband, and she said, "I sure hope she doesn't marry Charlie Bailey." Her mother said that.
Did you have any children?
Yes, we have 5 children and 18 grandchildren. And Paul is in Seattle, and Alan is out in Seattle. Don is in Orlando, and LaVon is in Tampa. And Beth married a British boy, and she lives in London, England, and she has 4 kids.
Can you remember anything special about each of your children as they were growing up?
As they were growing up, I don't remember anything special about them. I remember when we lived in Monahans, Texas, I bought them a Shetland pony and 1 mare. And from that one we raised several other ponies. And we had 2 ice cream wagons. We worked a team of mares to the ice cream wagon, the big wagon, and the small wagon we worked the stallion, the little stallion to it. And we would buy a freezer full of ice cream, you know, popsicles and icicles, no popsicles and dipsy doodles and sandwiches. And they sold for about 10 or maybe 15 cents a piece. And one time Paul was counting the money, and he was feeling so good about the money. I think it was $37 he had talked about. And I said, well, that's not all our money. And he said, well, why not? I said, because we have to pay for the ice cream out of that money. You know? He didn't understand that.
Do you have any hobbies?
Hobbies? Yeah, I like to play the piano, and I like to memorize scriptures now and then. And I used to like to play tennis, but I almost died that time I was playing tennis. Is that all of them? Last week we stayed 4 or 5 days. We've been down to the Bahamas twice.
Is there anything unusual that has occurred in your adult life that you wish to talk about?
About what now?
Anything unusual
About my adult life?
in your adult life?
In my adult life. Well, I can think of several things, you know.
Tell them how many jobs you had when you were putting your kids through college.
Yeah, we were living in California, and the kids were going to Florida College, and I was preaching on Sunday, making about $25 a week. And I was driving a school bus, a 91 passenger school bus, and I think they paid me $75 a month for that. And I was teaching. I don't remember what we were making teaching.
14,000, I guess.
14,000 a year. It was a low salary compared to what they get now. And then on Saturdays, I would mow yards because we had to work pretty hard to get our kids through college. I'd mow 3 yards, and they'd pay me $20 or $25. So I did have 4 jobs.
Please describe family life during a favorite holiday.
My favorite holiday, I guess my birthday would be one. My birthday, I get neckties on my birthday.
Who had the greatest influence on you while you were young?
The greatest influence, I guess my mother did. One time I was talking to her out on the back porch, and I used the word heck. I don't know why I did, but I had heard someone else say it like that. So she said, we don't talk like that in our family. And we had a peach tree out in the backyard. And and she went out there and got a branch off the tree about this long and peeled all the leaves off. And she whipped me around my thighs real good with that peach tree there.
What has helped you get through the tough times?
Huh?
What has helped you get through the tough times?
Tough time. Miss me more than anybody else. She still does.
Compare the lives of children today with when you were young.
Well, when I was young, I'll tell you what my daddy would do on Saturday afternoon. He would give my brother and me 50 cents apiece on Saturday afternoon. When we got to town, we went to Burkhalter's and got us a hamburger. And a Coca-Cola was 5 cents. These little Cokes about this way. Then the theater was across the street on Saturday afternoon. They were Westerns, always Westerns. And that was 10 cents. And we'd buy a paper bag full of popcorn, that was 5 cents. And then we would head down to the drugstore and get a cone ice cream, and that was 5 cents.
How do you feel television has influenced our society?
Say that again.
How do you feel television has influenced our society?
Oh, more than I realize, more than we realize. We waste a lot of time, you know, watching TV. I heard just the other day that people watch TV about 2.5 hours a day. Well, we watch it, I think, more than that. And on the TV, you hear foul language, and you see girls that are nearly naked. And I think it's getting worse.
Are there any stories you would like to tell me that I have not asked about?
I was thinking about once over in a pop cup, Miss Man and I went to a nursing home to see a friend of ours. And she was going down the corridor with her wheelchair on her, you know, using a wheelchair. And she was talking real loud to herself. She says, "Lord, what are we going to do with these people? Why don't we just kick them out of the church?" I never will forget that story. Kick them out of the church.
What was it like when you mentioned about some philosophy or something?
Do you have any other stories?
You can tell one on Meredith if you want to do that.
No.
I'll tell you one on Lucy.
Okay.
She's not here. One time Lucy was over here, and I think she was about 6 or 7. I'll tell you two on Lucy. When we were living in the mobile home, this happened when we were living in the mobile home. You know, cash and carry was not very far away, so I said, "Let's go over to cash and carry and get us some candy." She said, "Okay," and so we walked over there, and she had this little camera around her neck. I didn't know she had it. I didn't notice it. When we got over there, we were behind the store, and they had this beautiful shrubbery. And she said, "Grandpa, could I make a picture?" I said, yeah, if you want to." She said, "Would you get over there by the shrubbery?" And I walked over there. She said, "Would you take your cap off?" I said, "Yeah," and I took my cap off. I think I had it in my right hand. She said, "Would you take your teeth out?" And I did like this. And she said, "Now you're supposed to smile." And I smiled. Then I like this one better though than that. When they came here, they were tearing up the road up there on 78th Street, and the dirt was stacked real high. And we walked, I was walking, and she knew where I walked, and she said, do you mind if I go with you? And I said, well, can you walk that far? And she said, oh yeah, I can walk that far. I said, okay, you can go with me. So when we got up there, there was a pile of sand about this high, and I said, can you run up that and back down without falling down? And she said, oh yeah, that's easy. So she ran up there and came back down. Then there was this pile of sand about as high as the ceiling, you know, real high. I said, can you run up that way and come back down? Like you did the other one? And she said, no, I can't do that. I said, well, I can't. She said, well, you go ahead and do it. I'll walk on back to the house and make arrangements for your funeral.
If you could give a message about life to your children, grandchildren, and generations to come, what would it be?
Well, I'd say one of the main problems would be a religious problem, going to church and worshiping God and reading the Bible and having prayers and being faithful about that, you know.